let's talk about some property taxes. And for those of you renting, this concerns you, but I'm going to address it a little differently than what most people would. So stay tuned. Property taxes are just going to keep going up, and they're going to keep going up because they're going to keep revaluing your property, because the dollar is not an accurate unit of any kind of monetary measurement. So they're always going to say it's worth more and more and more. So they're going to keep raising your taxes, and which means that even if your house or your property is paid off, they're just going to keep raising the amount of money that you're going to pay them per month or per quarter, or in some, for some people they pay per year. That's just going to keep going up, and there is only about one way out of this, and it's the same way the country was started. You ain't gonna like any of this, but it's the truth. I mean, like, that's the only way out of this. Otherwise, they will just keep raising it. And the goons, which are your idiot police and your idiot military and your idiot enforcement people, the idiots in general, are going to just keep going along with all this, because they're paid a bunch of fake money printed from nothing to keep enforcing bullshit, right? That's how property taxes work, and that's why they will just keep going up. So, and you have done this to yourselves in a lot of cases, because for a lot of people, you have ignored the plight of the renter, right? You're like, well, they just need to buy houses. You don't understand that how banking works. Banking is designed to make sure that you're always lending to someone who has more to lose than you do. That's the number one rule in banking, which is why they will choose to rent to, or choose to do loans with rent seekers over doing loans for individual owners, because a rent seeker, they add no actual value to the economy. Don't even fill my comments with about, well, but my house I bought, I rent these out. Look, dude, I get that hashtag not all landlords kind of thing. You don't need to remind me. But the majority of rent seeking that exists nowadays, okay, rent seeking is what we call modern day landlords, has gotten way out of control. They're paying so much money for these houses, and they're in negative cash flow positions, and they're charging all this money thinking they're going to get all this money back, because the dollar is losing all of its value. Remember, your property values aren't increasing. It's just your currency being turned to shit, right? And it is. The US dollar is a shit currency. It's the single most worthless dog shit currency that's ever existed in the history of mankind. I don't say that lightly, because the Romans tried. So, yeah, I mean, none of these prices are going to go down. And if you've kind of made your own bed, because you keep ignoring the renters. You keep ignoring the renters and say, well, you know, yeah, you want to have a nation of people who own their property. The reason you want that is so that way you have a larger army, right? See, if you, all the rent seekers out there, keep ratcheting up the rents, and you keep buying up all the properties, and then the other people are not owning properties. Now, for you, it's like, oh, well, this is a great business model, because see, I can basically hog fuck the next 3 generations of people and make a bunch of money. Yeah, but then there's nobody there to give a shit about you when your property taxes go to the fucking moon. There's nobody there to give a fuck about you, because again, remember, property taxes only go down one way, and it's the same way the country was started. We already talked about this. And you're like, oh no, we can vote, we can do this, we can put the orange man. Like, dude, no. You don't vote your way out of this, okay? You don't vote your way out of whatever this has turned into, this sort of Soviet hybrid nonsense, China bullshit. You don't vote your way out of that. There is but one way out of that. And it usually involves making a giant example, you know, Vlad the Impaler style, out of enforcers. And then enforcers start saying, well, maybe we shouldn't be enforcing this. And then they start having an epiphany. And once I'm telling you the truth. This is the unfortunate truth of everything, is that the enforcer class, once you've made it a few examples of them, then yeah, they stop enforcing. They start saying, well, you know, I guess leave them alone, and you know, let's find some other way to run this Ponzi scheme. Well, you could just print it. I mean, you print the dollars to worthlessness anyway, so just print it. Now, the reason they're raising the property taxes, by the way, is to just try and pry you out of your property to the point where you can no longer afford to actually pay the taxes on the property. Then they take it. It's just a land seizure. That's all this stuff is, and it's run by both you know. And this is the part that the left, okay, all my socialist followers out there, who think that no, it's all the fault of the corporations. They cannot do any of this without government. Property taxes is government, dude. Now, oh, but they're owned by the corporations, man. Like, I get that, and you're right. You're right for the wrong reasons, but yeah, I mean that's how it works. Okay, they still have to have guys with guns go do this stuff. And the only way you deal with guys with guns, there's only one way. Historically, going back through all of human history, there's but one way to deal with that. I know you guys don't like this conversation. A whole bunch of you out there think, oh, this is Fed posting and so forth. No, I'm telling you the truth. You don't have to go out and do anything. That would be Fed posting. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you have to be able to actually have some kind of an army of other people who also own property and share your fate. Well, if you've got a whole country full of people who are renting, then you have a much smaller army to draw from, especially knowing that like 80% of people are going to be gutless turds anyway. Actually, it's more than that. They will never do it. They'll be slaves, and they'll be happy to be slaves, because slavery, for the most part, is a choice. And I know that's another one that's not popular, but it's really kind of the truth. I mean, when you decide you don't want to be a slave for something, then you make the conscious decision to say, I can't in good conscience be a part of this any longer, which is the other half of conscience. We've talked about that. There's two laws on this planet, physics and conscience. And the other half of conscience isn't, part of conscience is saying, I don't want to do something because. The hard part of conscience is the dangerous part, which is I can no longer allow that. I can't, in good conscience, allow this to continue. That's the dangerous part. So, yeah, I mean, like, this is just reality. If you think you're voting you are delusional if you think you're voting your way out of this. You are straight delusional if you think you're going to vote your way out of this disaster. It's just going to get worse, and it's going to ratchet up, and then you're going to be trying to figure out how it is you're going to be able, I see these things where these guys are paying $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year in property taxes. You're basically renting your own property that you've already paid for, right? In fact, in some cases, paid for years ago. And that's just going to get worse because it's a land grab, no different than what's going on in Appalachia. No different. They're just after this because they can't have Americans owning stuff, because as soon as, like I've talked about on many occasions, if the average American owns stuff, they own their property, they start owning the means of their production, they start becoming less lazy, they start realizing, oh man, if I keep all my money, I can do quite well. If I start making stuff on my own property and then selling it, and then start selling it for things other than the US dollar, because the US dollar is a dog shit currency. Sorry, orange fucktard, dude. Orange fucktard, the US dollar is dog shit. And I know you're trying to keep it alive because, because your banker masters tell you to keep it alive, because that's who you really work for. I know that about you, orange fucktard. It's the fucking truth. You work for them. You don't work for the American people. You can make America great. That's not the same thing as making American people great. I'm talking to the American people. I'm talking about shit that actually fucking affects them. Kick all the fucking illegals out of here and let real estate fucking collapse, and then have everybody go in there and start saying, no, let's start bringing all these property taxes down to zero. That'd get my attention. Anything less than that, fuck you. Anything less than getting rid of all the goddamn gun laws, fuck you. Is that in any way unclear?